Chapter 1 Rebirth. I am Qin Shi Wang. Yesterday, I was caught by the moon throw. Give me a brain, help me think a way to get out. Next time I'll treat you. The stench of rotting meat pierced Chun Xian's nostrils, forcibly pulling him from his stupor. He tried to sit up from the cold ground, but felt his body was exceptionally foreign, as if it did not belong to him. Damn it, the curse stuck in his throat, only rolling out a dull sound. He struggled to open his eyes. His vision was murky, as if seen through a thick layer of greasy frosted glass, unclear and indistinct. The air was so humid it felt like it could wring out water droplets. The heavy scent of decay mingled with the countless white bones beneath him, revealing a chilling aura. Where the hell is this? In the depths of his mind, it felt as if countless memories were stuffed into a washing machine. The memories of Chun Xian from his past life were violently colliding with a primal, violent consciousness of a young creature. Countless fragmented images and chaotic information swirled deep within his consciousness. Finally, a clear yet despairing conclusion emerged that he, Chun Xian, had traveled across worlds. He did not become a wealthy noble, nor a powerful mage, and he wasn't even human. He had become a young ogre, a name that sounded quite cool. Bone Crusher Bagrock. At least let me be a human. Bagrock lamented in anger, instinctively raising his hand to slap himself. Smack! That powerful palm solidly struck his own face. The force was so great it nearly knocked him over. A whimper like that of a young beast involuntarily escaped. Great, it's not a dream. Fortunately, the ogre's body was tough enough apart from the pain. It was not a big deal. The urgent task at hand was to clarify the situation. The memories of his predecessor were too chaotic. He needed to sort them out. He turned his stiff neck, trying to adapt to this unfamiliar body. His gaze swept around, and he could tell he was in a cave. The ground was made of rugged rocks, and in the corners lay scattered remnants of bones of various shapes. Several crude weapons stained with suspicious dark red marks were carelessly discarded like garbage. From the direction of the cave entrance, a faint light filtered in, barely outlining the cave's menacing contours and illuminating a small patch of murky water nearby. Bagrock nervously crawled over and leaned his large face close to the rippling water surface. The murky water rippled a few times, clearly reflecting a face terrifying enough to haunt the nightmares of adventurers. With a godly face like this, can't I at least be a bit handsome in my rebirth? The last shred of fantasy was completely shattered. Boom! At that moment, a heavy sound like a giant hammer striking the ground approached. With each step, the ground trembled. The light at the cave entrance was soon swallowed by a shadow. An adult ogre. This sense of oppression was beyond what the fragmented memories could compare to. This monster was like a living totem of strength and brutality. Its brown skin resembled heavy biological armor. The thick neck was coiled with twisted veins like a contorted giant python. That enormous mouth was only slightly ajar, revealing rows of gleaming, chilling fangs, as if a flesh gate to the abyss. Just standing there, the invisible pressure had already made the air stagnate. Grag's murky single eye swept across the cave like a searchlight. Its cold gaze locked onto the trembling Bagrock in the corner. Go eat. A roar like thunder exploded in the cave, making his head buzz. Grag's thick fingers, exuding an undeniable authority, pointed sharply toward the cave exit. An order. A barefaced command. Bagrock. The light outside the cave was somewhat blinding. He squinted his yellow little eyes that were still unaccustomed to the brightness. Although the air was still murky, filled with the smell of soil and decaying matter, it seemed refreshingly clear compared to inside the cave. Before him was a relatively open glade in the woods. Several young ogres, similar in size to Bagrock, were fiercely fighting in the clearing, but a gray-skinned cub was howling, trying to put its rounded head against the bulging belly of another green-skinned fellow. The green-skinned cub, not to be outdone, swung its chubby fist and delivered a solid blow to the gray cub's forehead. Bang! The gray cub stumbled from the hit, but instead of getting angry, it excitedly let out a higher-pitched grr. Poochie! Roar! Charging again fearlessly. The two little meat mountains immediately rolled into a ball, dust flying, fists and feet flying without a hint of dodging. Nearby, 2 or 3 others of the same kind watched foolishly, occasionally letting out unintelligible ha-ha sounds, serving as encouragement. This innocently carefree scene of young cubs playing might evoke a sense of cuteness in any other race. But paired with the ogre's already emerging sinister features and their bumpy, rough skin, it only exuded a sense of grotesque curiosity. Bagrock's mouth involuntarily twitched. As expected of ogres even in their cub stage, they're so hardcore. His gaze was soon attracted to an object in the center of the clearing. There was a massive stone trough, large enough to easily hold 2 or 3 adult wild boars. A roaring fire burned beneath the trough, the fierce flames licking the bottom, causing the murky, viscous liquid inside to bubble incessantly. Thick bubbles constantly burst, emitting an indescribable mixed odor as meat and plants rolled in the soup. In the soup, chunks of meat and various unknown tuberous plants floated and sank, forming a daunting delicacy. Fortunately, in the deep mountains and forests, one might not encounter a living person for years, so there was no need to worry about strange additions rolling in the soup. This was a specially prepared nutritional meal for the cubs, easy to absorb, capable of accelerating the growth of these little ogres that a few adults, slightly smaller than the one inside the cave, grew impatient as the cubs gathered and stomped heavily on the ground with their tree trunk-like thighs. Boom! The dull sound was like a horn announcing mealtime. The cubs, who had been wrestling and biting, immediately stopped their friendly exchanges, howling as if they had caught a whiff of blood, rushing toward the immense pot. Bagrock also rushed over without hesitation. In this cruel ogre ecosystem, being polite meant you wouldn't even get to lick the soup dregs. Though the food looked unappetizing, it at least mixed meat chunks and plant roots, barely passing as a balanced diet. In order to quickly gain the primitive strength to establish himself in this brutal world, Bagrock began devouring without chewing. Only when his belly was swollen and round, unable to fit anything more, did he gasp for breath and collapse to the side. Lying on the ground, feeling the fullness of his stomach, he pondered in confusion about the future. Chapter 2 Talent. Just as Bagrock felt a sense of bleakness about the future of this ogre cub, a semi-transparent, metallic, glimmering light curtain suddenly appeared before him, unfolding without warning. Name: Bone Crusher Bagrock. Biological level: 1. Occupation: none. Talent: none. Buzz. Bagrock's heart felt as though it had been struck by an invisible hammer, nearly shattering his throat as it raced. An indescribable ecstasy surged through his brain. Damn, it's here! The blessing of the transmigrator has arrived. On the light curtain, icons and arcane text swirled like brilliant stardust, eventually settling down, leaving only that initially simple and almost shabby interface. Staring at this familiar yet strange panel, the fragmented memories deep in his mind suddenly pieced together. Damn! Isn't this the single-player game I played to death before I transmigrated? Bagrock almost shouted out loud that it was a single-player game he impulsively downloaded from an advertisement for a certain tomato novel. The core gameplay involved loading various attribute talents on a virtual exotic beasts and watching them evolve and mutate. In his previous life, he had transformed a chicken into a devil muscle monster with a plethora of attributes. Its stats were even higher than a dragon's. Some web novels he read in his past life didn't lie to him. The games he played before his death had unexpectedly become a cheat in this other world. Fortunately, he hadn't played those adult games. Otherwise, if an epic quest like Defeat the Female Ogre popped up, the imagery would be too beautiful, and just imagining it was enough to make his soul tremble. At this moment, his panel was empty, looking as if it had just been raided. However, if a chicken could evolve into a dragon's nemesis, then it was only reasonable for an ogre to surpass a dragon. As thoughts flowed, a few lines of glowing text quietly appeared at the bottom of the panel. You have overeaten, gain talent. Glutton. Effect: stomach pouch space. Expanded, food storage capacity increased. You have ingested a high-energy nutrient mixture, gain talent. Efficient absorption. Effect: digestion speed increased. Absorption efficiency enhanced. 2 icons radiating a faint glow lit up the previously desolate talent slots, quietly hovering, waiting to be activated. This was somewhat inconsistent with the game's settings. In his memory, talents were automatically equipped, but they could be unequipped at any time. Reality was indeed not just cold code. The sudden transformation erupted within his flesh and blood, potentially influencing the course of a battle. This pending activation buffer mechanism was, in fact, a gift for survival. Now was the time to test the miracle. Akip, glutton. He thought that a strange warmth suddenly surged from deep within his abdomen. He could clearly sense the structure of his digestive system being optimized by an unseen hand. The stomach, which had just been stuffed tightly, bizarrely expanded, forcibly creating a precious space. Next, efficient absorption, another more powerful wave of heat rushed in. The peristalsis of his stomach instantly transformed into a violent turbine. Digestive fluids erupted like lava. His abdomen was no longer a heavy burden, but soaked in the core of a highly efficient biological furnace, warmth continuously flowing. The food he had just swallowed was being broken down and absorbed at an unprecedented, terrifying speed. Pure currents of life energy surged like flowing magma, rushing towards every inch of hungry tissue in his limbs, just as Baglock was immersed in the comfort brought by this evolution. Smack! A giant palm, filled with brute force, smashed hard against his solid back. The impact was so great that it jolted his organs, nearly causing him to perform a forward roll on the spot. It was that little green punk named Bonebreaker Gorin. Gorin grinned widely, his mouth big enough to fit a fist, revealing a jagged set of baby teeth, and a muffled gurgle escaped his throat. Play. Gurgle. The rare peace and insight within Baglock's chest were instantly filled with rage. He twisted his thick neck sharply and saw Gorin grinning with a twisted, ugly face. Taking advantage of his unpreparedness, a fierce gleam surged in Baglock's eyes. Power roared and surged through the muscle fibers of his right arm, condensing into a primal force, and his fist, like a battering ram, struck fiercely at that mocking, ugly face. Boom! The dull sound of impact echoed like a drum. Gorin's laughter was abruptly silenced, his entire green head snapping back violently, his massive body losing balance and crashing to the ground. Baglock showed no hesitation, like an enraged, prehistoric beast, raising his fist the size of a cooking pot and unleashing a storm of blows on that falling green head. Bang! 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 The thudding sounds of fists hitting flesh echoed heavily, like a hammer striking wet cowhide. However, after dozens of punches, his arms grew sore and swollen, and Gorin, aside from his face swelling up like a steamed bun, remained lively. A roar filled with humiliation and anger erupted from deep within his throat, struggling to rise once more to fight. The other ogre cubs watching were thoroughly entertained, as if they were enjoying a thrilling gladiatorial performance. In their primitive, violent perception, this was just another game among cubs. The more Baglock hit, the more frustrated he became. Ogres were known for their endurance. The two were about the same age and physique, like tanks battling tanks. It wouldn't be over until they were utterly exhausted. Enough! Baglock retracted his fist, coldly looking down at the pig-headed green chub on the ground. You've lost. Gorin, feeling the attack stop, stubbornly lifted his swollen eyelid. I didn't lose. Gah! Baglock struck him on the forehead with lightning speed, the force precise. You are too weak now. The weak do not deserve to be my punching bag. Gorin's swollen green face immediately flushed red, as if he were about to become a steam princess at any moment. Okay, I will. Become stronger. Gah! Gorin struggled to get up, his eyes burning with a nearly tangible flame of humiliation, suddenly turning to unleash his pent-up rage on the other cubs, watching the fight. A new battle circle ignited instantly. As for the previous beating, just a surface injury. With an ogre's constitution, a good sleep would nearly fix everything. Ogres might not have much else, but they were indeed tough. The other little ogres were also ignited by this blatant fighting spirit, rolling up their sleeves, ready to join in. Baglock merely cast a cold glance at the restless little brats, and then ignored them that he lay back down on the ground, feeling the warm currents flowing within him, and began to calmly plan his future development. With these two talents, my growth will definitely accelerate, and talents will evolve continuously with use. This tangible life evolution is far more exhilarating than the numbers jumping on a screen. The next goal was to unlock more powerful talent attributes. Only in this way could he truly grasp his future in this world of the survival of the fittest.